I love process maps, and if you're doing an AI transformation, building complex AI agents, or even just optimizing your business, you sure need to build process maps, or sometimes called workflow diagrams. In this episode, I'm going to share 7 tips that I use, including AI, to build process maps. Here we go. So as I said in the intro, we're going to go through 7 tips of how to use AI to create a workflow diagram. So excited. I love workflow diagrams. Here we go. So the first thing I did is I went to ChatGPT and I tried to use ChatGPT to create this. I had my prompt and really a lot of times you're starting out with a piece of text that's like, okay, here's kind of how this thing works. And then you're wanting to make a visual of it because visuals are so much easier to understand and they help you answer questions that you didn't even think of when you were kind of trying to craft this thing in text. So they fill in the blanks and they clarify the whole big picture and how all the details relate, right? So I'm like, man, I love these things. Let's make one. So I tried to do this with ChatGPT a few months ago, and I tried to hook it to Lucidchart. There was like a little integration, and I hooked that together, and it didn't really work that well. As long as it was like a linear flow that just had like one box and the next and the next, it was fine, but it didn't really do branching very well. And if there's only one linear flow, then you could kind of just make a list, a textual list, and it's not really helpful to have a visual. And I wanted more than that. So if you've had a good experience with the Lucidchart integration or another way of using ChatGPT, tell me in the comments. I really want to know. So when that didn't work, the next thing I did recently when I needed to make another one is I wanted to try some different things. So I asked something like, hey, tell me some softwares that I could use to go from text to a flowchart. And so it gave me some. I checked out one of them, and it gave me a paywall right away. It said okay, 7-day free 7-day free trial, but it said you have to put in your credit card information first. I'm like, what if I forget and I don't like it? Like, I might try out several of these before I get to the one I like. And I was like, I didn't want to do that. So what I did is I went to Whimsical.com. I think they call it Whimsical AI maybe, but anyway, Whimsical.com. And I really like this one. So I want to show you 7 tips that I recommend for building these process workflows. And specifically when this is useful for you is that, you're doing an AI transformation, you're optimizing a task, you want to do some automations, and you're thinking, okay, what is this process? What does it look like? What are the current inputs and outputs? And there's a lot of different ways that this can look. But I wanted to take you through 7 of these tips that I have. I'll get into the tool. I'll show you how these things work, and then we'll walk through a little bit of this diagram that I have. Just for context, this is a paragraph of text that I needed to understand better as I'm making an agreement, and I needed to know, like, what happens if this, what happens if that, and not just like someone telling me verbally, but I needed to nail this down and agree on, look, is this what's happening here? Is this the logic flow, or there's some differences in my understanding to the understanding of the company that I'm wanting to make this agreement with? So it's called, the company's called Omni, and they generate leads. So they're like, hey, we'll sell you a lead in the form of an appointment on your calendar. And I've seen a bunch of these companies. This one I've been very impressed with so far. They seem to really know what they're doing. And so, but before I sign, I want to know all the ins and outs. So here we are. Now I have a little notepad here with the list of 7 items. So this is the first one. And let me see if I can make this bigger for you. Oh, okay, that's how to do it. So if you're using Notepad, you just go Command plus or Control plus, and then they can be big enough that you can see them. Whoops. Let's just make this window a little bigger. Lovely. There they are. And you can use this in meetings. You can use it for walking people through an agenda. And that's why I wanted to have this here, just so that it's easy to go in and out, and I can make these videos for you quickly. And I can make more of them for you if I can do it quickly. So the general layout of your process workflow using AI to get it done. And let me just show you how this looks. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new one. So there's a bunch of places where you can do a plus, but the place in whimsical.com, like they do a bunch of stuff, really cool. But the one I want to show you today is for workflow diagrams, right? And so in order to create a workflow diagram, you just click create new, and by this point you've set up your account. I wouldn't worry too much about the questions that they ask you, but just you log in, you answer a few questions, and then you click board. Okay, so create new and then board, and now you kind of start from scratch. And if you are starting from scratch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this contract that they sent me, and I'm going to click on this button. If you see the stars, it's usually something to do with AI these days, right? A couple little stars there. So it says generate with AI. And I'm just going to paste that paragraph. So it's a nice long paragraph. And we've been working on this back and forth, and they've made some clarifications, but there's still some questions. And I'm thinking, why don't I just make it easy for them? Okay. So then create, and it's going to create a diagram, and it's a little different every time it comes out. It's not quite as detailed as I need, but it has some great things in here. And so what I did is in the beginning is I created one of these, and I thought, that's sort of what I need. Some of these are the right questions to be asking. And the second time I created it was here. So you can see that it looks different. And this is now the third time that I've put that same prompt in, and it's Gen AI, right? It does a different thing every time. I took this and I said, okay, what can I learn from this? Where are they going with this? And then I actually started building my own. So I took some of the concepts that they gave me, and then I started kind of massaging it. And here's what I ended up with, right, as a kind of a final product. And I haven't showed this to them yet. Actually, I just sent it over an email, but I haven't confirmed whether this is actually the way that their company works or not. So don't take this like the golden truth or anything like that. This is not an official representation of Omni or anything like that. But this is me. This is just Tyler Small here. So now we've got kind of a general layout. And the next thing I want to talk about are swim lanes. And this is something that can help you break up the information into chunks in a way that's easy to look at or to not look at. Because when you look at a good process diagram, you're going to be looking at layers, and you only want to be able to see one layer at a time when you're looking for something. So if you're looking, for example, at what has to happen at least 24 hours before the call, it's in this box. This is a zone. Okay, it's sort of like a swim lane. A swim lane would be like we had a box for each of the people who are interested, or each of the positions that are playing a role in this process. That's one way to do it. And if you imagine like an Olympic-sized pool, and there's a bunch of swim lanes with the black paint on the bottom, that's, and then you put the boxes where into the lane of the person who's going to be doing it, or the position who's going to be doing it, or even the department or the company, right? Depending on the scope of your process diagram. So that's a way to help the eyeball when it's saying, wait, who's supposed to do this? Or what's supposed to happen within 24 hours? It's very easy to look inside of that box to find that out. So basically our brain, runs these queries, asks us a question, what's supposed to happen within 24 hours? And then we're making it very easy visually in order to understand that information. So it's a kind of box, right? A box around boxes. Now to go to the next one, shapes. So let's talk about shapes. I love shapes and differentiating the information that a shape portrays. And a shape is a type of concrete information that we don't need to be literate. It's not necessarily difficult as reading in order to get it done. Not that reading is hard, but a lot of people don't like to read, right? And so the shape is a type of symbol for the information that it's portraying. And in this case, this diamond shape represents a question or a branching opportunity where either two or more things could happen at this juncture. So those are the diamonds, and then the boxes are like, here's what happened, and that's kind of the end of the road there. Kind of that's the way it found. That's the way the ball bounced. That's what happened. So by differentiating those two, it helps the viewer kind of look and see what's going on. So that's some symbolic information that we're using. And the next thing is arrows. So arrows show us the flow. We can see what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. And arrows are describable with text, but they're much easier to look at, right? And so looking and seeing like, and I like to put the text in here. So, and let me just catch you up here on showing what you need to do in order to add one. So in order to add a box, all you need to do is click this button here, like, right? So I just click that, boom, and it's connected. So if I wanted to add 2, then boom, I added 2. And I just started out with, or actually, sorry, it's not adding 2. It's just doing, I don't know what this little figure means, actually. Let me know in the comments if you know what that means. But I started with the original, right? And so there was something there, and then I messed around with it by adding the arrows. And to change the color, you just click in this box here, and you've got these colors to choose from. No, there's only a certain number, but this actually helps you because constraints can actually guide you in doing something faster and more simply. So if you have more than 10 colors, 12 colors, let's say 12, it's 15 colors they're giving you here. If you have more than 15 colors, that's probably not a good thing for a workflow diagram. It's too hard to track all that. And so they give you a limited amount. You can also mess with, giving it just focusing on the outline and changing the middle color there, or you can give it dashed lines. So that can be another symbolic piece of information that you're encoding. And if you have a lot going on, you probably should have a key. I didn't do a key for this one, since the only thing going on here is the color. It's not critical to understand the diamonds. It's not really critical information. It's just kind of guides the eye, right? The critical information is that red boxes are when the client's not charged, and green boxes are when the client is charged. And that's just something that I shared in the email, right? So in this case, it's so simple that a key isn't super necessary. I should probably add a title, but for this purpose, it's like not meant for production or anything at this point. So those are the arrows, the colors of the shapes. So color is actually interesting because it's a little different. There's symbolic information and concrete information, and a color is concrete information. It requires no interpretation in order for the brain to think, okay, what is this? You don't have to know a certain language, and you don't have to know. So I'm not sure like how shape falls into that category. Like shape is sort of concrete as well. You don't need to know how to read, but the colors are interesting because it is the most fundamental, easiest way for the human brain to receive information and differentiate. And that's why they use it for traffic lights. Imagine, you're rushing into an intersection, you're going 50, 60 miles an hour, and you need to tell what color that light is. Imagine if it was instead a shape, like, is that a triangle or a diamond? Is that a circle or a square? Like, it's much easier to just interpret a shape. So, a color. The easiest thing is color. So I used colors to show the pathway that leads to a closed deal, right? So it goes right through yes, and that's the color of the diamonds there. Next is the color of the lines. So I used red for no and yes, green for yes. And I also, so in order to get a new line here, by the way, all you need to do is copy and paste. And then I just, drag it over here. And then when it lights up, it's attached to it so that if you move that around, it's going to stick with it. So let's watch here. So see how it comes with it? Isn't that nice? And then we see this loop-de-loop thing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. These are little anchor points. I'm going to delete that one. And then let's say I wanted this one here. I would just do that. So I'm just moving it around. And then in order to get the words in here, let's say that there's no word box. Let's see. I don't know how to get rid of the word box. Do I just delete it there? Yeah, you just delete it. But in order to add a word box, you just click the T and there it is. So this would be the yes, right? So then if you want to slide it down, you can. I like to keep my words near the box that they came from, so you can tell what are the options here? no, yes, yes. And so then it's easy to see what this arrow represents. So I don't need that one. I'm going to delete it. But that's how to create a new arrow and attach it where you need to. Sometimes if you create this here, create a new one, it'll give you this elbow joint. And I don't like the elbow joints as much. You can use them if you want, but in order to get rid of the elbow nature of it, you just click it there. You just click the elbow, and then it's a straight line, and it'll come around with it, right? And if you want to have the pretty curve, you just click once on it so it's highlighted, and then it gives you this, as soon as you mouse over it, you can see this little dot, and then you can do the curve, and you can make this curve to help you make it pretty or to get around through a certain way. And there it is. So now you know how to make boxes, and if you want to change the shape, you just click the shape button, right? It's very intuitive. If I couldn't figure out something here that I need to, I would just Google it, right? And knowing how to Google things, like, that's a really good thing to practice. If you're not familiar with like how to look things up on the internet and find information quickly, how to do this in this system, like, that's a really, really great skill to learn. So I'm going to delete both of those. And if you want to highlight multiple things at the same time, like I just did, by the way, you just click on it and then hold down the shift button and click another thing. Okay. And then you can delete it. Or if you want to, like, I was moving around like all these things in order to get it tighter. Because if you have it and it's too long and it's you have to pan your eyeballs down in order to see multiple visual fields, then that's not good, right? You want to see your whole workflow diagram in one visual field. So sometimes you need to move around a bunch of things at once. See how this whole thing moves around? Well, you can just highlight it by clicking and dragging. So now you know how to make boxes, how to change their colors. Obviously, in order to type into a box, you just double click and type into it. And you can bold and put italics there. You can even put bullet points, change the indentation there, or the alignment rather. You can put hyperlinks in, make it go to the top, the bottom, the middle, and those are how you can edit those boxes. I showed you how to edit the arrows and how to change their color, how to make it a different elbow or a curved one or just straight, and how to add those words in there. Now, the last thing I want to go to is the notes. Okay, this is tip number 7, is that in the notes, in order to create a note here, now first of all, the purpose of a note is like, well, let's say you don't want to make this box huge, right? So I could have put this inside of the box, but then the box would be giant, and it wouldn't look as good. Also, it's not something that the viewer has to read. It's just something that's subtle, like, oh, if they want more information. So I don't want to make the note stick out, like in this case, like hey, look at me. I just want it to be very subtle, like, oh, if you're reading this box and you want to know what it says, then this information's right here. You can read it if you want. So it's just a kind of a nice to know thing. And in order to do that, you just click this little text here, and then you do a little box, and you can type right into it. So that's how to do it. You just click on the text box and make a little box there, and then you can type into it. And if you need to push the enter button in order to make a new line, you can do that. Now, if I needed this to be really bright and shiny, maybe I'd make it a brighter color, or maybe I would make it bigger, right? So you do have some options on the color, the size, etc. So I'm just gonna Control Z, and that's Control Undo, right? I'm on a Mac, so it's Command Z, and there it goes. So I use Command Z or Control Z a lot in order to undo things. So that is, and if you need to, by the way, if you need to change the shape of the box, you just grab it and move it down like this. So I want to change the shape a little bit. There we go. So now that's tighter than it was. And you can zoom in by clicking, I believe, on all things. I don't use a mouse. I use just my trackpad on my Mac, and I just use the zoom feature. But if you hold down the command, or I think it might be control on a PC, and just use your scroll wheel, or sometimes it's shift scroll. Like different keyboards have different like rules that you put on them, but like try one of those buttons and try using the scroll wheel, and you can go in and out of something like this. In order to pan like this, you just either, if you're on a trackpad, you use 2 fingers and move them together, or if you're on a mouse, you just click down, and I think and it just drags. Oh, here we go. There we go. So I think if you're on a mouse, you have to use this button here. So I've seen this on a lot of different softwares like this. You just click and drag, and it kind of drags it around. So that's the pan mode. So otherwise, you'll just make a box if you do that. And so now you know how to get around. And then to share this, to export it, the easy way is you can just, if you're on a Mac, Command Shift, and I think most PCs have a print screen button, or if you're using like a cut tool, whatever you're using, then you can just take a screenshot of it. That's one way to do it. That's how I shared it with the company Omni that I'm working with. Or you can click this share button, and you can copy the link to get to it. And it says workspace members have no access, anyone with the link. So make sure that before you just copy this link, that you make sure that anyone can view. And then password required. Do I want to include a password? I don't. If I did, I could go and use the pro version. But now that anyone with the link can view, I'll copy this link and I'll include it in the YouTube description below. All right. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this works for you. I would love to see your comments on this video of what you'd like to see more of in the future, and what other ideas you have to make workflow diagrams better. So just include those in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.